Right, okay, morning guys, how are you all doing? Thanks for joining us this morning, this special meet. Massive thank you to Mark and Sam from Haunted Auckland for joining us today. What time is it with you guys out there?
It is 9 o'clock, just
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, yeah, okay. So 10
Saturday
o'clock
night.
here in Scotland, 9 o'clock with you guys at night in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So as I say, thanks for joining us, guys. So, Haunted Auckland, tell us a bit about it.
Well, where do we start? Haunted Auckland started about 10 years ago, just under 10 years ago now. And basically I just wanted to get back into a team situation. I'd been doing a lot of solo investigations for about 15, 20 years. Previous to that, back in the 80s, I had another team. 1985, I had a team called New Zealand Ghost Hunting Group. That's what we were called, just three of us. And then I went solo for many years. And then back in sort of about 2009, I thought it'd be quite nice to get back into it again with a team. And that was when sort of TV shows had started up. Ghost Hunters had started up again. And I noticed a few teams now with the internet. I'd noticed a few teams had sort of started up around the place. So I thought, yeah, now is the time. Start pulling a few people together and see what we can come up with. And it was a bit of a task. We've lost a few people in the past, and new people have joined, and people have come and gone, and we've ended up with what we've got now, which is a nice tight little team, and it's going really well.
Good.
And
yes.
We've travelled most of the country, the length and breadth of the country, and stayed in some amazing places, and yeah, it's been a blast.
Good. It's similar to us then, I suppose. We're the same. In October, we're 10 years old. So yeah, about the same kind of vintage in the field. So Sam, you're an investigator. You've been, what did you say, 5 or 6 years with the team?
for about 6 years. I think it was 2013, 2014, sometime around then.
Yeah.
First investigation was Puhoi, which was an old Centennial Hall. And that was quite an interesting one. Do you remember that one, Mark?
Yes, that was quite neat.
Yeah. Well, nothing too flashy for a first investigation, but I was thinking while we were there, we had the lights turn off, didn't we? The whole it's like it was only a tiny, small little hall in Puhoi, which is a really small town just outside of Auckland. And allegedly it was a janitor, I think, that people had allegedly spotted around there. So we were setting up and going around this hall with cameras. So there was the hall, there was like a rec room and a kitchen. That's all that there was to this building. And I was introducing myself to the rest of the team, and all of a sudden the lights just turned off, and it was as if the circuit breaker had gone off. And
it
had, yeah. Which, first time it was quite exciting, I thought.
And we also had all that activity with the EMF meters going off at the detecting static somehow, and we couldn't figure that out. That was quite exciting for some of the newbies there in the team. But yeah.
But since then, we've been to a lot of exciting places. We've been to Napier Prison, which is another good one. We've done King Seat, which is I guess we call it a mental hospital. Lots of really cool places in Auckland and around New Zealand. Cool. Definitely.
Yeah, cool. Lynn is waiting to come in, so I'm going to let Lynn in, and then we'll carry on, guys. So Lynn, if you keep joining us just now.
Lots of really cool places in Auckland and around New Zealand. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's that lag.
I think Lynn needs to turn her phone down. Yeah. Okay.
Deja vu.
She's on properly. So there she is.
Hey, Lynn.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good evening or good morning.
It's night time.
So yeah, guys, for Sam and Mark, I know Mark's already met Lynn, but Lynn's our researcher. So she investigates as well. So she's a research investigator with the team.
Nice to meet you, Lynn.
Hello.
So you were saying, guys, I mean, you've obviously got into a lot of locations. I mean, that's something that we've kind of struggled with. We have got into some amazing locations, but you know, things like we'd have loved to have got into the mental asylum here before it, you know, once it closed down and there was a fire and that. But we've always been there's been a reluctance in certain areas of the business community and that to allow paranormal teams to investigate locations over here. Do you get that challenge at all, or is it much easier over in New Zealand?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're very, very limited. We're a very young country, so we don't have the history that you guys have got. But we are very limited to the places we can go. And a lot of, yeah, I agree, a lot of hotels and places like that don't like the paranormal or the sort of haunted stigma that comes with it. So it can be hard. But we're finding just through digging around that there are a lot of locations that don't advertise that they're haunted, but have lots of activity. And whereas where the owners and the staff would be the only ones to know about it. So we just approach them and just ask, hey, you got any activity? And it's quite amazing what you get back.
Yeah.
Where they'll admit to you, yes, we do actually have something here. Would you like to come and have a look? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, we've actually, that's probably
quite easy.
Yeah, that's probably how we get ours. Yeah, a lot of ours now.
Just and word of mouth. I mean, reputation is a big one. Once a team has a reputation amongst the historical societies and all that, it's a lot easier to get in. And I'm finding it's quite easy. We've managed to get into quite a few places through word of mouth, through those places that are in touch with the other places, and everyone in the historical societies, they all talk amongst themselves. And word does get around. And if one house has had a good experience with us, well, then they'll recommend us to somebody else. So yeah, it works all right. Okay, we do get a lot of rejection, and but it is understandable. I can understand why people wouldn't want us in there. So yeah, we do get rejection. But I mean, you guys have got such far better historical locations than we ever have here. I mean, your prisons are so much bigger. Your hospitals are so much bigger. Your insane asylums are just ridiculously huge. We have to we're very limited to what we can work with, really.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've got a very rich history and you know, also folklore as well. And up here in the Highlands, we've got, you know, fairies. You know, still stories of fairies, and you've got the you know, a lot of tragedy up here in the Highlands as well, as I'm sure there is in other places, but with the Jacobite uprisings and the Highland clearances. So yeah, there's a lot of history, a lot of energies, you know.
That fairy thing. Yeah. I mean, the whole folklore of fairies and little people, that has never really appealed to me much. I mean, I thought, oh, that's really kind. It's interesting, yeah. But I've never really thought much of it until I went to Scotland and started talking to the locals there and saw how passionate they were about their folklore. Yeah. And just the story, it's incredible. Just, you know, people just talking about fairies and goblins and trolls and that kind of thing. And then when you actually travel to Scotland and you start going through the Highlands and seeing the location, you can sort of picture these entities living there. Yeah.
It's
sort of the pieces come together and you can sort of imagine it. You can see it there.
Yeah. I've been surprised by some of the people who have approached me to talk about things like fairies. And, you know, these are, you know, professional people, and yet they have got belief that, that there could be little folk, you know, and it is absolutely fascinating. As I said, there's a lot of tales, a lot of stories connected to the fairies and that up here. As well. I mean, what in New Zealand, obviously, going further back, what sort of traditional kind of folk tales or creatures are sort of associated with the country?
We still have the fairy stories. It is close to the Maori folklore. It's still pale skin, red haired little fairy folk that live in the forest. And then it's really from there to giants. to bird people as well. It's all in Maori mythology. Whether you choose to go down and pursue following those stories or not is entirely up to the person. But, there's people that do believe that it is real. And in terms of the pale-skinned, red-haired fairy folk, I think, in depending on who you ask, it might be a matter of who came to New Zealand first. Was it the Maori or was there someone else? These people were allegedly teaching the Maori folk how to make nets and how to fish and things like that. So there is a little bit of tie-in there somewhere, but it's all depends on who you ask.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So where, guys, is your favourite locations in New Zealand then? That you've investigated?
For me, I don't know. I mean, I've enjoyed quite a few of the private residence locations, but there was we have got a psychiatric hospital here, an old closed down about 20 years ago or so, called Kingseat. I've enjoyed investigating that location. It has numerous buildings that we've sort of managed to get into through the years. There was also an old school. It was an old girls' school here in Auckland, and it had long since been shut down. And we managed to get in there, get in friendly with the leaseholders at the time, and we got the keys, and they gave us the keys, and we had them for about 2 years, and we squeezed in about nearly 20 investigations over 2 years, and we had a lot of ongoing activity. I mean, nothing huge, but enough to warrant sort of going back there and doing repeat visits, and we had access to the place, so we thought, why not? But we had some great activity there. I mean, some nights there'd be nothing, it'd be dead. Other nights you'd hear footsteps coming downstairs. There'd be little grey mists sort of floating across hallways, pianos being played, the sound of children heard, because it was an old girls' school, so we had children. This is like 2 or 3 in the morning. You'd be hearing crowds of little children laughing and giggling just faintly in the background through the headphones, and just things like that. Yeah,
that was the thing that you mentioned it as well, was being able to go back plenty of times. You say sometimes we had lots of activity and other times we had nothing, and it's just a matter of when are these things going to happen? You don't know, and that was the beauty of being able to go back more than once, just to actually fully research this place and give it a really good go.
Yeah, we have got a couple of locations that we have got pretty much unlimited access to, and we've got the Pump House Theatre, and the Pump House Theatre is in a very old building here, 1905, 1906, and that's got a few spirits that are supposed to linger around that place, so we do a lot of return visits there. And there's an old art school. There's a Lake House Art School as well, which we've got and friendly with the management there, so they let us come in whenever we want to. So that's nice. So yeah, again, reputation has helped us get into places, getting familiar with the owners, and that is in. And we've been quite privileged with some of the places we've been in. Quite pleased, we've gone to places that nobody else can get into, and places that nobody ever thought would be haunted until we went in there. So
yeah, excellent.
Lovely.
Yeah, it does make a difference, Sam, as well. You're right, when you can go back and revisit a location. Lynn, I think Durn House has been like that for us, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just on an off chance that we had something cancelled, and I'd seen on Facebook that they were having a dinner on Halloween, and I went, just messaged them on the off chance and said, do you fancy us coming along and letting your guests have a little ghost hunt round after dinners? And then that followed on with, how many events have we had now? 3?
3, yeah. 3 full
3 events.
Yeah.
It's a great location there.
Yeah.
I went in there just for an hour just to whip around, and one of the maids there, one of the cleaners, showed me around the place. She showed me every single room in that place. And brilliant. So I've got it on my list for next time I'm over there.
Yeah.
I'll be staying in Durn. And
It's an amazing location.
Touchwood, I'll be going there, seeing Susan again.
Yeah, Touchwood again, another amazing location, and one that we've done and that's another building that we can do basically whenever we like, and whenever we want. So it's got that wow factor, as you know, Mark, from visiting. As soon as you walk through the door, it's like, whoa. And
Susan's lovely as well. So
yeah, it's
a great experience.
It's great. And Durn House is another one that they are now, they've been kind of, oh, can you come back, guys? Can you come back, guys? Can we do another event? Can we do another event? And it's funny because what they did was, when they first got in touch, they sent me, oh, we've got some history. We've also got some details on the ghosts. And they sent me this long list, and I'm sitting there chuckling away thinking, nah, come on, you'd be lucky if a location's got one, a location like this, and maybe one or two, but actually it is quite an active location. We've basically got different spirits every single time we've gone in there. But again, it goes down the route, that one, that like a lot of buildings in Scotland, they lay derelict. So I think it was a tax, wasn't it? I think they introduced, Lynn, and then as a result of that tax, a lot of these big manor houses and even castles were basically abandoned, because people could no longer afford to run them. And that house, Durn House, actually ended up being completely gutted. There was nothing left in it. So everything that's in it now is not from the original house.
Fireplaces. I think there's a couple of fireplaces original, but there was some stolen because it was left empty. People went in and stole things out of it, even some of the flagstones. So there is no original furniture, or they've done it up really, really well, very sympathetically done. But that doesn't stop any wanted activity, though, does it?
No. Well, the theory being that quite a few of the items that have been brought in have haunted, are kind of connected, and there's to the spirits that are there. So in one room, I think there's a chest that they think an old man and an old woman are connected to, and they sit in the chairs next to them, and things like that. So as I said, it is fascinating, to go into these places, and as I said, the objects themselves are in some cases are probably older than the house, possibly, So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So what would you say then has been your most difficult case? I mean, if you can talk about that as possibly it's a private case, but what sort of challenges have you had one that's kind of either been, well, I really don't know what to do here, or this is dangerous?
Yeah, for me, the most awkward ones are the ones where it's quite obvious from the get-go that it's a mental health issue, and normally we can sort those problems out. We can sort those issues out via email. When we get their message, we can reply and we can sort of work it out, talk with them, ascertain their mental state just through the emails, the way they write and what they're saying. But there have been a few in the earlier days that we haven't been so onto it with our questioning, and we've turned up at their house and we've found out that it's there is definitely mental health issues there, quite serious, depression and paranoia and all that kind of thing. There was one guy that was seeing all sorts of apparitions in his house. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and you'd see all these little scenarios being played out on the wall, like little projections. And he was so scared of all these demons that he had in his house that he had a giant knife beside his bed because he thought he had intruders. And there was a big bottle of wine, red wine, next to the bed, and he was drinking, and he was an alcoholic, and he was, big blade knives and drinking and paranoia of ghosts, that kind of thing. It's we were starting to get a bit worried about it, and he told us to all the activity was pretty much based around his bedroom, and he basically said, look, if you sit on my bed at around about this time, you'll start to see things. Just look at that corner, and you'll see it. And he closed the door on us and he left the room. And we were counting down the minutes to see if anything happened. Of course, nothing happened, but we could hear him grunting and making all sorts of noises out in the lounge. We don't know what he was doing, but it was very creepy because we just didn't, we're in a strange house and with a strange man. He was obviously a bit deranged, and we couldn't help him.
Yeah.
Short story.
You just don't know how they're going to behave as well.
We don't.
When they get to a certain state.
Yeah.
It does become quite hard.
Yeah, so the private ones for me we're a little bit uncertain, which is why we do a lot of vetting now. We do a lot of questioning now of prior to organising anything. And we found that sometimes you can sort it out just by toing and froing with these people and chatting with them.
Yeah.
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 Have you felt uncomfortable with anything?
Oh yeah, with very similar.
Yeah.
Kind of private cases where we've been in a position where clearly the individual has issues, and I think I've said at open meets and that before actually, that I think in private cases, not all but a high volume of adult cases are down to mental health issues. We find that with the cases with children tend to in general be different, but yeah, I've been in uncomfortable situations. I broke rule number 1 in returning to a location once because the guy was so upset I went myself, and that was just complete stupidity on my part, and I couldn't get out of the place quick enough, but it was a really uncomfortable evening for me. And that guy was, there's been a couple where we've gone into houses where they're not very clean, and they're smokers, and they're dashing around with their mobile phone torch on, filming orbs moving about, and they have, they've got ghosts. They're cursed, and when you try to explain what it really is, they are not interested. That's a challenge. But yeah,
exactly.
We have been in a few houses where you're like, I really need to get out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, for a lot of these people, they've already made up their minds before they even make contact with you. They've made up their minds that they've got demons or they've got ghosts. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter what you say, unless you agree with them, then in their mind it's ghosts and nothing you can say will change that. And I certainly don't want to go in there and agree with somebody and tell them, yes, you've got demons, because that just fuels it.
Oh yeah, definitely. You've got to be.
So you can't do that.
No, you've got to be honest. You've got to be honest, and you've got to try and be sympathetic, but at the same time, you've got to tell them the reality, or you're right, you're going to fuel it and make it even worse. So yeah, definitely, and I think, to be fair, the majority of people we deal with take it really well and are thankful for the fact that we do come in. I think I mentioned the other week about a medium who'd gone into a house and told the poor woman that she had a sea of souls under her kitchen floor. Now, what she actually had was a warped kitchen floor. But the medium basically told her this and left. Said, I can't help you. It's too much for me. And left. So we had to go in and sort the situation out, as it were. But we've had a few of that kind of thing up here, where we've had mediums who claim they can help people and have actually done quite the opposite. So yeah, you're spot on. You can't fuel it, because you do make, and for that individual, it was making things. She wasn't, she didn't have mental health issues. She was just generally worried that there was activity going on in her house. Her son actually was seeing spirit. That was the other side of it. So there was actually but not in the kitchen area or anything like that. But the medium never picked up on any of that. Yeah, it's a challenge. And as I said, I always say the the living are more scary than the dead. I always, when people say, "Oh, you do ghost hunting, that must be really scary," I go, "Nah, nah, nah. The living are a lot more scary."
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
That's exactly true. I mean, I've only felt uncomfortable in locations dealing with people. I've never felt uncomfortable in a location that is literally haunted or could be ghosts. Never.
Yeah, well, again, it's, you know, you mentioned demons and that there. Now, for me personally, I've yet to be sold on the whole demon. You know, to me, it's a belief. I'm more down the route of you are either if you're good in life, you're good in death. If you're bad in life, you're probably bad in death as well. And that's always kind of the route I've taken. From our point of view, I think we've done many cases that are labelled by the client as demonic, but we've never actually come across anything that is to date. You know, I don't know about you guys, but that's certainly...
It's a giant leap to make, isn't it? From I'm having some strange feelings or I feel uncomfortable about my house to I've got demons.
Yeah.
It's a giant leap to make, isn't it?
Yeah. I do, one of the things I actually do when I go into an investigation, when I go to somebody's houses, one of the first things I look for is their DVD and book collection.
Yeah.
Just to get a feeling, because if it's full of horror films or you know, over here it'd be most haunted DVDs and things like that, the alarm bells immediately start ringing with me. You know, but yeah, you're quite right. It is a giant jump, but there's a lot of people out there claiming.
And have you noticed that a lot of the places you've been into, private home situations, the bookshelves are full of Twilight and Harry Potter books?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's always Harry Potter and Twilight there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's as I say, it's one of the first things I look for when I go into.
It's definitely become a lot more popular on television at the moment as well. And of course, as you say, when people are watching it on TV, they want a ghost story of their own, they're going to jump straight to demons because it's popular at the moment, and that sort of thing in terms of television gets views and it sells, and people are just going to buy into it.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. We had a case. It was a private case we were called into. It was a block of flats, and we went up to it, and we basically went round and we debunked it. We were debunking everything. We went into the last flat, and all of a sudden we worked with a medium, and our medium was like, "Whoa, hang on a minute," because up to that point he'd been like, "There's nothing here." He was debunking more than I was, but he goes, "Well, hang on a minute," and then he was saying, Ouija board. So what the guys had done is, they were teenagers. They'd done a Ouija board, and they had freaked out. They had broken the Ouija board into 5 pieces or 6 pieces and buried it in the church yard up the hill, but they'd kept the planchette. So Mike, our medium, picked up the name. They said, "Oh, that's the last name we got on it." So he said, "Give me the planchette." So we took the planchette away, but that's not the end of the story. Because they did that, they then completely freaked themselves out, and they started doing ghost hunts in the building. And they said, "Oh, we've got this video. We've got to show you this video. It's of a drill switching itself on." So they've recorded this on their phone. They put their phone down and propped it up. So somebody either phones or texts their phone vibrates. See, there's the bill turning on. They stormed out of the room when we explained that to them. They actually stormed out of the room when we explained.
They didn't believe you? Or they did?
Yeah, they didn't take that well.
No.
But yeah, and the you weren't guys.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, the planchette ended up in the crommery first on the way back, way back to Inverness. So yeah, it's never to see the light of day again, I don't think. But yeah, so as I said, it's definitely interesting. And Mike's actually just joined us on the link. I'm just gonna have a quick look through the questions, guys, and just see if there's anything, any questions from anyone. Yeah, Mary is asking, have any of you guys ever refused to go into a location?
We've turned down private investigation requests, but no, as far as historical locations or other locations like that, no. I can't think of any. Sam, no?
I can't think of anything. I think the only, in terms of historical buildings, I agree with the private investigations, but historical buildings, the only reason I can think of that we would turn something down is if it just wasn't safe to walk around, if it was a little bit too derelict and run down, and it put us all at risk. That would be the only reason I can think of that we wouldn't go into one. But I don't think we have, as far as I know.
No.
No, I don't think we have, Lynn, have we? I don't think from historical location wise.
No, just for the same reasons. I think we went out to the Red Castle to check it out, but it's all fenced off because it's really dangerous. So I think that's the only things that we can't do. It's really crumbly and
if it's dangerous or it's fenced off, no entry, and we have that. No, we won't do it. We won't do it. And I think the only other location that we've always said we wouldn't do was Culloden Battlefield. So that was a team decision that we would never actually do Culloden Battlefield out of respect. But other than that, we haven't turned down any, as I said, any historic ones. It would be just, yeah, you're right, private ones again. We have gone no.
Has anybody ever done the Culloden yet?
There's been a few teams, I think.
A lot of area to cover.
Yeah, there's a few teams kind of walked it, I think. National Trust, who run it, are dead against any form of paranormal investigation on it. It's war graves, so they're very much, as I said, against it. I know a few teams have gone onto the field. I'm not quite sure kind of what activity, if any, they've got kind of back. I did do a video where I did a kind of walk rounds before, and I'll probably do another one of them. But it won't be an investigation. It'll just be a walk around to the battlefield. Yeah, it's an area that means a lot to a lot of people. So out of respect, we've kind of never done it. There was some talk about us doing the a visitor centre at one point because there's activity in it. But that whole area is pretty active. So even the woods and things like that around it, because part of the woods would have been part of the battlefield. So what you see now as the battlefield is not the whole battlefield, as it were. So, you know, and I think Mike, he was there a couple of years ago and he actually saw what he thinks was a red coat as well. And one of the common stories that we hear now is kids seeing a red coat on the battlefield, an elderly looking gentleman who waves at the children. And that's been reported into the visitor centre probably 9 or 10 times by different families from all over the world that have seen that. So, but yeah, no, we haven't done. We wouldn't do Culloden. Jean is asking why old abandoned mental hospitals are so active for ghosts. Is there any evidence that the mentally ill have trouble moving on?
Good question. I think my personal opinion is that it's just a place of a lot of emotion. A lot of people going in and out and going through, and maybe, you know, the thoughts inside their head tend to stick around, possibly. And, you know, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of confusion. And, you know, if we're to believe that energy does stick around, maybe those emotions stick around. And of course, you know, again, going back to what you see in the movies and media, that sort of thing sticks. It's asylums and it's old derelict buildings, and it has that wow factor when investigating. And I think psychologically, if you go into a building, you know, compared to a brand new building, you'd think an old abandoned asylum would have ghosts in it, and that's what people are going to think as soon as they see it.
Yeah, definitely. I would certainly say, I mean, there's a lot of with our one here, Craig Deneen, there is a lot of reports of activity from various people, from security guards to nurses and that worked in the place when it was open, and that. So there is a lot of stories, and I suppose it could make the theory of energies are the horrible things were done to people in these buildings, and I often wonder is it that energy that's still there, yeah. Back on the Ouija board subject, what are you guys' opinions on folk with mental health issues using Ouija boards on investigations?
We don't use Ouija boards on investigations, full stop.
Yeah.
That's just a decoration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've never used them. I would say that I've done quite a few cases where grown adults have done Ouija board sessions when they've been probably teenagers, and then have blamed everything that's gone on in their life on that Ouija board session. So I think from a mental health point of view, I think Ouija boards can cause mental health issues.
Very good.
Yeah, that's kind of, I've always kind of looked at it from that angle of don't do one, because actually whatever your beliefs are, whether you believe it is a way of communicating with spirit or not, it messes with your head. That's in the bottom line, it messes with your head. So that's why I wouldn't advise anyone to use a Ouija board.
The boards themselves aren't dangerous. It's the people that use them, and the power of suggestion and what that can cause within somebody's mind.
Definitely it's only going to fuel what they're already believing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't believe the hype.
Definitely. PJ Ross is saying, never seen a ghost, but would love to feel atmospheres in places. I soak it up, have seen things broken afterwards, moved, lights turned on, love it all. So yeah, I mean, that is another thing, is going into a building and getting that, oh, there's something not right here. I don't know if that's something you guys get.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not psychic at all. I'm not sensitive to anything like that, but I've felt many things going into psychiatric hospitals, just even homes. You walk into a room and you can feel there's just something not right. I remember a few investigations we did at Kingseat Psychiatric Hospital, and there would be whole corridors just full of holding cells, or I guess what do you call them? It's a hospital. It's not a cell, is it? It's a rooms. But there were whole corridors just full of rooms on each side. And we would from room to room, and they all felt the same. But then you'd go into one room, which looks exactly the same as all the others, but bam, you can just feel it. It's like walking into a thick cloud of nothing. It's just this thick cloud of air. I don't know, that it's hard to explain.
A general sense of heaviness.
Yeah, it is. It's very heavy, thick. To me, the air felt thick, like you're walking through a thick cloud. And the room was exactly like all the others. So, I mean, yeah, you can get certain feelings. I mean, you don't have to be sensitive to feel things from locations. Yeah,
definitely. I think, Lynn, you've probably felt like going into certain locations. I mean, and you're a bit like me. You don't kind of class yourself as spiritual in that sense. So,
Yeah, when we were in Touchwood, I keep getting the name wrong. And we did that charity investigation, and I did the history reveal with the owner beforehand. We were all in the kitchen, and it wasn't unpleasant, but it wasn't comfortable. And we all came out to meet everybody that was coming in for the investigation. And then I realised I'd left my bottle of water in the kitchen. I went, don't really want to go back for it, but I'm going to have to. And as I came out, I met Angela come in out of the kitchen as I was going to go in for my water. And she went, I don't like it in there. And I went, thanks, I've just got to go back there for my water. And as I opened the door, it smelled like, not kind of cigar smoke, maybe more pipe smoke. It was a sweet smoke. Shut the door, run back and got Ange. And we both went back and opened the door and smelt it. And then it just disappeared within that next few seconds. Cats are pissed. He was, when I'm sitting down, they think I'm their beck and call. Yeah, so yeah, there was an initial funny feeling there. And the other place I didn't like and actually came out of the room was when we did the old maternity hospital up in Inverness. And I think that was the room that people gave birth in. We found out afterwards. I just went in, I just felt nauseous and sick. And I just went back out in the corridor for a while because I just did not like that. But I think that's about the only two places I've not been fully comfortable in.
Yeah, the Touchwood is actually interesting because the kitchen of that same night on that same event, we actually got scratching under the table. There was, I think, 3 or 4 of us in the kitchen at the time, and we all heard it. And then actually, when we went back and listened to the audio afterwards, when Susan, the owner, was talking, something told her to shut up. You can clearly hear it on the audio going, shut up. You know? Yeah. It's like, whoa, you know? I've actually never felt anything in that kitchen. I always feel absolutely fine. But I think for me, Durn House was the one where I really, it was rare for me to get a headache and have to go, I need to sit down. I went into one of the bedrooms there and I was just like, there's something not right here. I don't like this. And that's really rare for me. Once I came back out of the room, I was absolutely fine. I actually went back into the room later in the night and I was fine. But the first time I went into that room, I was just, I don't like it in here. And that's really...
It's funny you mentioned Durn House. The cleaner that I was talking to there when I popped in, she took me up into the attic room, the very top room there, and she said there was a little girl that was up there, a little girl that's often seen up there, and she said that there's been many times where she's gone in there to change the sheets, and she'll feel something, she'll feel weird before she goes through that door, and then oftentimes when she's leaving, she'll get a little shadow of the other girl or a small person in that room at the same time, so she'll feel something before she actually sees it.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's psychic or anything, but she told me that she feels it before she walks in the room.
Yeah, I can well believe it. I think there was quite a few reports. I think there was one about a woman waking up in the middle of the night, and was it 2 kids in the room, or Lynn?
I think it was just the one child. She woke up in the middle of the night and thought that a child had come into the wrong room, and went back to sleep kind of thing, and didn't mention it until she was checking out the next morning, and then find out about the other stories about children. It's actually a room we've tried really hard to get a response in. We've put dolls out, we've put a ball out, and put cameras on them. But I don't think we've actually we've had some things come through in the ghost box, but we've not actually caught anything else in that room yet, and I'm not sure if it's just because we're going in with quite a big group, and if it's children, they're maybe a bit wary of the size of the group that we're in with. But yeah, we're going to keep trying in that room.
Yeah, that room that you go on, Mark, that's one of the most, as I said, I think active rooms. There's one further down as well where the guys actually did get the one where I don't know if the cleaner mentioned that when they're shutting the building down at night, they switch the lights off. They leave the building, look back up, and the bedroom light's always back on in that room. So actually, not my group, but the other group that were going around, they got that happen to them. They were doing everything off, all in the room, and then it was one of the bedside lights switched itself on and off. They also had the wardrobe door open by itself in that room, despite the fact everybody, they tried to debunk it, jumping up and down on the floor and everything like that. They could not replicate the wardrobe door opening by itself in that room. So again, yeah, very active room at Durn, that one. But yeah, normally, as I said, I feel fine. I find if a room actually has got high EMF, I will straight away feel, oh, I don't like it in here. It feels heavy. So I have noticed that any room that we've then, looked at, and oh yeah, you've got high EMF in here.
Now, just tell me, when you say that you feel it's there, are you actually looking at your EMF meter going off?
No, not at first. No, I would go into a room, just normal, come into a room. That I can think of one where we went into where actually the house was just, the wiring was just crazy in the whole house. But as I said, normally I don't walk in it. There was such a heavy presence And it's the sort of room I know if I sat in for like 15, 20 minutes, I would have a splitting headache. So that kind of feeling, and then we took the meters out. Oh, hang on a minute. And that kind of explained that one away. But that again, that was a fascinating case, because that was a case where it was a block of flats. It was a single mother. The history of the flats was that there actually had been a child murdered in the flat, I believe, in the 70s. So we knew that story. You know, so we were going in with, and she was reporting she was seeing a girl. But we actually debunked everything in that one. And it was the fact it was the EMF that was affecting the poor girl. So yeah, that was good. It was good.
Nice.
Okay. Carrie's saying, I think it's different perceptions. My youngest will not go through the dining room to my room on his own, but I have never had anything but positive experiences here. So yeah, that's another one. You just get that feeling, I don't want to go into somewhere or into a particular room. Yeah, I think you've touched on that already, Mark, haven't you? So, yeah. What's your scariest investigation experience?
Sam, you want to go first there?
Scariest one. I don't know. I don't generally get scared, but I mean,
Sure.
you know, like we touched on earlier, I think it's places. I think the most uneased I've felt was probably the St. James Theatre, just because it was in the middle of the Auckland CBD, and we were all alone. It was an abandoned building, and I just didn't know who, you know, being afraid of the living as well. I just had no idea who else was down there. Someone might have been, you know, squatting down there, or and again, it's not the ghost, it's just a matter of other people being there that might jump out from around the corner. In terms of haunted buildings, no, I mean, we've done the solo investigations at Puhoi House, and you do feel quite vulnerable when you're in a house by yourself and you start hearing sounds that, you know, aren't you, and, you know, there's no one else there. You know, that does, you know, put a bit of a chill down your spine, especially knowing that you're going to have to investigate that sound. You know, if you hear if you're in the lower floor and you hear a crash on the floor above you, you're going to have to go and have a look, just for the sake of, you know, I'm the investigator, so let's find out what it was. You don't necessarily want to, but that's our job, and I guess we do it for the love of it.
Yeah. Liam, the Puhoi project, we called it. It was the Puhoi homestead, and it was a house that was relocated onto this old sort of living museum. It was like a museum block of land that has a whole lot of old historical houses that have been moved onto it. And there's this place called Puhoi House. And we've done quite a few investigations there, and we did a few public events there as well. And we started to get a little bit of activity that we were picking up on things. So we decided, okay, let's expand on these investigations and let's try something different. Let's do solo investigations there. And so we decided to have a different team member stay in Puhoi House for a night by themselves. And they were there to investigate however they wanted, with whatever equipment they wanted, just use their own techniques, whatever they wanted to do it their own way, just them in the house, nobody else. Locked in there, and for the whole night, sleeping on the floor and just investigating by themselves. And it was a real character building experience for everybody, I think. I think we all sort of grew a little bit there. I did the first session, and throughout the night, I mean, I kept my setup pretty simple. I had I think I had about 3 video cameras set up. I had one camera set up on a tripod aiming up the stairwell, because there's this ongoing story about this old woman that's seen going up the stairs, the grey lady or whatever she's called. And so I set up a camera on a tripod at the bottom of the stairs, and because I wanted to capture that woman going up the stairs. And I didn't think much more of it. And at the end of as I was setting up, I had this flat torch. I have it around here somewhere. It's a flat-based torch somewhere. Oh, it is. I can see it right there. Hang on a second. Just a flat torch. Yeah. this thing here. It's the flat torch. Oh, yeah, it's got a little bit of power in it. Just push the button and it goes. That's all it was. I had this, so I thought, oh, what should I do with this? I thought I'll put it on a chair. There's a chair up in the upstairs room, in the hallway there. So I thought I'll just sit there on the chair, and maybe a ghost will use it as a trigger object. They'll push the button and the light will go on, and maybe the camera down the bottom of the stairs might capture a light going on. Didn't think much more of it. Just before 3 o'clock, I decided I'm really tired. It's been a hard day. Gonna get some sleep, and so got in the sleeping bag and slept on the lounge floor. And around about 3 o'clock, just after 3, I was awoken by a big bang, and something had fallen or something else. I assumed it might have been a camera on a tripod or something had fallen over. But it woke me up, so I went to investigate it and went upstairs and found that my torch had been thrown down the stairs, and it was at the bottom of the stairs. To understand this fully, you have to sort of know the layout of the place. Where it was upstairs on a chair. Somehow it's come off the chair, made its way along about a couple of meters, then gone down a level of stairs, and then down another level of stairs, and then suddenly it went slam vertically parallel to the wall to hit the bottom. So I didn't process all that. I was all tired and half asleep and all that sort of thing. Next day, went home, fast forwarded all the video to that point. It did on 3 o'clock. You hear the clock strike 3, which I slept through. A few minutes after that, you started hearing rustling and footsteps and creaking and a metal clunking sound and all this movement upstairs, which I didn't hear. I slept through all that. There's about 12 minutes of movement, like there's somebody upstairs dragging furniture and stomping around. And then you hear this big bang and you see my torch go slam down the bottom of the stairs. It was incredible, but all we caught was the torch flying down, and we didn't get it coming off the chair, which would have been the money shot. That would have been fantastic to have, you know, the torch levitating or somehow coming off the chair, but it didn't. I think the next one was it you, Sam, that did the second one?
I think I did the third one, but
Yeah.
you came along to help me set up, and we kind of went over what happened with your torch. So the stairs kind of, it goes up, then there's a platform, there's a big window by that platform, and then the stairs take a bit of a sharp right to go onto the second floor. So we came to the conclusion that if it was a person playing a trick on Mark, or whether it was an animal or of some sort, we don't believe that any animal could have picked up that torch and thrown it down the stairs. But whatever it was, you would have seen the reflection in the window on that second platform. The only thing you can see in Mark's video is there's a little bit of light shining through the bars of the stairs, and you see a tiny shadow just break the light coming through as you hear it's more of a drag. I wouldn't say it's footsteps, would you? It's more of a dragging sound up to the torch.
Dragging, yeah, it's hard to tell.
And then you see the light break, and then you see this torch come crashing down. And of course you had a motion censored light down there as well, which also triggered on the steps.
But Sam, I think everybody in the team basically had a night there by themselves. And I think everybody experienced a little bit of something else, a little bit sounds of movement. Barbara, one of the team members, she was in there, and she had an audio recorder upstairs, and she was downstairs at the time, and she was just getting ready for bed. And in her recordings, when she played it back, there's a man upstairs, and it was a man upstairs talking about the pumps, and you can quite clearly hear him saying blah, 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 something rather about pumps, doing something about the pumps or something. And it was just a woman there. It was just her and one of the other ladies there. And so no men in the place, and I'd way gone. I'd left ages ago and I wasn't there. And so when they played it back, they heard this man talking about the pumps. We did a bit of research and found out that the person that owned the place, Mr. McLaughlin, actually had built a filtration pump on the site, and he had moved it. I think he'd brought it from overseas, or he'd set up this pump anyway, this filtration pump, and he was very proud of this pump. And it was the only one in the country, and he'd set it up there in the farm and the homestead. And it's just a weird coincidence or a nice tie-in there that he was proud of his pump, his filtration pump, and here's this man talking about a pump. So whether that was a residual, an audio residual recording, perhaps somehow of him talking, but it was captured on audio, which is nice.
Yeah, great capture.
And other members had prods and pokes, and one of the other ladies, she had footsteps coming down the hallway towards her, clip clop clip clop clip clop, all the way down the hallway to where she was standing. So yeah, everybody had experiences.
Sounds like wonderful.
Marlene had the candles on the piano come off. So it was an old style piano which had the candle holders attached to the actual piano, and during the middle of the night one of those candles came off, and that gave her a hell of a fright. That she's got on camera as well.
She stuck it through, and she lasted to the morning. That's good.
Yep.
So it was a real character building test for all members. I think we all did it, and it was great.
Is that? I think I've seen some of that footage before, Mark. Is that on YouTube? Have you got that posted up?
Yeah, if you just type in Puhoi Project.
Yeah.
Puhoi Project, it has all that, and I've got all the footage from every investigator that was doing their sessions.
Yeah. Cool. No, I'll share something up on our page later. I'm sure everyone love to see it. So I'll get something on.
I'm keen to go back there.
Yeah, sounds absolutely amazing.
Well, it's interesting, especially with Mark's video, just to listen to the sounds leading up to the torch as well. There's some very curious noises, and of course Mark was downstairs and everything was going on upstairs. Even when I was there, being asleep down in the living room, and you could hear footsteps and drawers, old wooden drawers clunking and moving and that sort of thing. And you really shouldn't be hearing anything else, knowing that you're there by yourself. And I put some of the noises down that maybe it might be rats in the walls, maybe some of the scratching noises I heard, but some of them you can't explain. Yeah. And it's one of those places that I'd love to go back and stay and spend more time in.
It sounds amazing, as well. And to get activity, different people get activity on different nights, but similar activity. But in different rooms and things as well. That's sense.
Well, that was the whole point of the project, was to individualize to all the team members. Don't go as a group where you've got all that potential contamination from each team member. You just have one person in that one house alone with minimal equipment and no major setups, just video cameras and a few gadgets, and keep it really simple and just see what happens. And it worked out really well.
Cool. Yeah.
At the same time, it didn't feel menacing at all. It felt like someone was just going about their daily business, and you were just a guest staying there. Whether it was somebody that knew that we were there, or whether it was just like a residual repetition of somebody, doing their daily chores. I don't know. Once I started hearing the sounds, I didn't actually feel scared at all or anything like that. It just seemed normal.
Yeah. Cool.
It did, yeah.
So has anything actually ever scared you then, Mark?
No, I don't. No, for me, it's a whole, I don't feel scared. It's more of I get a rush. I feel excitement. Even just little things excite me. I like all those little things that you experience in this field, because I am quite skeptical about things, and I'm very skeptical about certain cases, and certain activity that is reported. But whenever something does happen for myself and I'm there to witness it or experience it, I enjoy it. I love it. I enjoy it for what it is, no matter how small. If it's something that I can't explain at that time, I love it. I love the mystery, and I love doing the detective work and trying to figure things out. It's one of those things where, I don't know, I kind of don't really want to find out whether they're real or not. I'm enjoying the journey, for me personally, I know ghosts exist. Ghosts do exist. And if anybody asks, there was a time where I would say, I don't know. And I think, Sam, when you joined, I was saying, I don't know.
Well, I think that's where I'm at now. I'm at the I don't know stage. I'm always going to be a believer, but I think I'm at that stage where I'm trying to be a little bit over skeptical at times and debunk a lot. But
But you get to the point though where you go from I don't know to I know they exist, but I don't know what they are.
Yeah, that
And
was the
that's where I'm
question
at
I was
with my
just gonna.
journey.
That was the
Yeah.
question I was just gonna ask, because that's where I am.
Yeah.
I'm now at a point where yes,
Yeah.
ghosts exist,
They
but
exist wherever they are.
what is a ghost?
Yeah.
You know, what is a ghost?
The next step is to like interact with them, find out about them, who they are, what they eat, what they drink, you know, where they live, you know, all those little things.
Yeah.
Their opinions on things, and basically just interact and communicate. That's the next step of the journey for me personally. Whatever they are, I mean, you can't dismiss it. People all over the world are experiencing these things.
Yeah.
From even the isolated parts of the world that don't have movies and television and internet and books, they experience the same things we do. So you can't dismiss all that, and you can't dismiss the millions and millions of experiences and sightings through the years. I mean, it goes way back, and yeah, there's definitely something in it. You just got to find out what.
Yeah. 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 I think when we already kind of touched on what kind of scared you, that what you're uncomfortable at touching, anything that actually ever scared you?
Not on an investigation, no. There's only a couple of things giving me a fright, and that's been in the house, in my house. And once when I was out in Aberdeen in the middle of a cafe, actually, in Debenhams Cafe, used to go in every Saturday because my kids went to drama school in Aberdeen, and I would toodle off for the 3 hours around the shops around the cafe, and if Colin was off, he would come. And we went for our cup of tea and coffee, and we got it, put the tray down the table, and Colin decided to go to the loo first. So I was put everything on the table and put the tray down, wait for him to come back. And my teapot actually just turned 90 degrees on the table. And then I've never been to, I got such a scare in the middle of a lot of people. I was like, I'm looking around like that just happened. My teapot just went right in the middle of Debenhams Cafe. So yeah, that's all. Give me a fright. And they say scared. Even when I've seen the shadow figure at the bottom of my stairs last year. Yeah, you get that initial adrenaline shot that goes through you, and then you go, and it disappears, and then you go, okay, I've just seen that, and that just happened, and yeah, and I'm not scared in the house, but it gives you that initial, yeah, but yeah, that's about as much scared. Freak myself out sometimes, which as humans we I think we tend to do. We like to do. Scare ourselves, and you just have to take that minute and calm down and let that adrenaline clear your system and take a deep breath and just rationalize it.
Yeah.
And I think if it's a new location too, like as Sam was saying, in new locations, you don't know what's around the corner. If it's a location that you've been in many times, you start to feel really comfortable with them, and you can quite happily go in all areas in the dark, and you're not worried about anything because you know the situation, you know the layout of the place, and you know that there's nobody in there. And in a fresh building where you just have never been there before, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, the first time I went to Boleskine, when I was over there, you know, I'd never been there before. I'd only seen a few photographs. I didn't know if there was any homeless people living there or what to expect. And but just after spending a few hours sitting there, I quite happily sat in the dark there, you know, and I kept going back a few times. And yeah, it's just familiarity. I think you just get used to places, and hopefully whatever's there, it gets familiar with you, you know, and gets to know you, and maybe opens up a little bit and comes forward. That's what I hope anyway.
Yeah. Mary's saying Scottish Paranormal investigate Culloden back in 2007.
Oh, okay.
Question for both groups. Are you able to question if you have visited a place in New Zealand with spirits stemming from Scottish settlers, that the same spirits can be picked up in locations they came from in Scotland?
I'm sure they probably exist further down in Dunedin.
Yep.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah.
But there was also I guess it's a rumor, a conspiracy theory that New Zealand was founded by a Scottish farmer long before the Maori turned up. It's very controversial, but that story does exist. And
I forgot about that.
allegedly remains have been found.
Right. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, took a wrong turn going home one night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I suppose there's nothing to stop. Obviously, the theory of spirit traveling between two countries. And locations that they may have. Certainly when you think about the migration of people from the Highlands to America, Canada, and Australia, New Zealand, and that. Yeah, I suppose it's quite possible.
Speaking of which, this one here, this little lady here, she's from Scotland.
All right.
This one here, this is an allegedly haunted doll that is actually originally from Scotland. That was given to me by a New Zealand family who had a Scottish mother. The son, his mother was Scottish. And the story behind this one, which is why I actually brought her to Scotland with me. I was hoping to give them to another team to look after with a haunted collection. And so she travelled to Scotland with me last time. She was in my bag. And I was I'm looking for a home for her. For next time I come over, I'm going to bring her with me because I want to return her back to her home. Basically, it's the woman, she originally lived in Scotland, and her family, her son moved to New Zealand and married and had kids and set up here. She ended up getting very sick, and she was a very bitter old angry woman. She was always angry and moaning and never happy, and just a very angry, bitter woman. Because of her illness, she was, confined to a wheelchair, and she was just very angry at the world and herself and what she wasn't able to do. And she basically, this was her doll, and she basically came to New Zealand. They shipped it to New Zealand, and she ended up dying in New Zealand. But she was just homesick. She wanted to get back to Scotland, and she missed Scotland so terribly. And she just got sicker and sicker and angrier and angrier, and it started to really play on the family. Her bitterness really sort of took over and infected the family, and they started fighting amongst each other, and there was this real nastiness. So when she passed away, the doll was put in a box in the bedroom, and the family noticed after a few months of the mother passing away that there was a sort of a dark cloud that came over the family, and they started arguing and bitching and fighting and division, and that kind of thing. There was just lots of nastiness going on in the house, and they didn't know where, because it was very uncharacteristic of all the family members. And they started to think maybe it was the spirit of the mother existing in the house through the doll. And so I've promised this doll that I'm going to take her back to Scotland, take her back home with me, and so next time I come back over, she'll be coming with me. I haven't given her a name. I don't know what her name is, but yeah, she's apparently has an attachment. She hasn't affected anybody in this household, though. I haven't been fighting with the wife since I've had her. So it's all good feelings now, but yeah, I'm going to take her home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got quite a collection, haven't you, Mark, of objects with alleged attachment.
It calls me a hoarder. Yeah. Yeah, all these things. I mean, the first item I had, first item I had, I collected back in 1985, I think it was 86. I got given an old toy that was haunted, and I got given a Ouija board in the late 80s, and I just started collecting. People just started hearing about it, and since I've had the team and just putting myself out there, people have been just offering me things, and it's quite surprising the things you get. Yeah, people just are scared by the most amazing things. It's quite strange that there was this keyboard here. This keyboard.
Yeah.
It's haunted. It's got no batteries in it. I've put batteries in it now, but it had no batteries in it. This elderly couple kept getting woken up in the middle of the night by this music being played. It sounded like it was coming from under the house. And they got the son-in-law to come around, and he scrambled around under the house. He found a box box that had this keyboard in it. So he dragged the box out and put it in the lounge room, and at the middle of the night, this keyboard was going off. Without any batteries in it, it was just playing. So they decided to pass it on to me because I thought it was haunted. Quite interesting. So I've got things like this. I've got plenty of dolls. Dolls seem to be quite popular. These little things here, this is a male. I've got a male and a female. One of these. If you can see this, it's a hanging puppet. I've got two of those, and they fight. There's two of them. There's a male and a female. They come in pairs, and they're always fighting and getting tangled up with each other. And they haven't done it since they've been with me, though.
Oh, right, okay. That was a question I was gonna actually ask you. Have you done any kind of investigation around these objects yourself to see if
Yes, this room has got two cameras. I've got a camera there and a camera there that aimed in this direction in hopes of capturing something. And oftentimes I'll come in and I've got various gadgets that I've got in here, which I sometimes will just turn on and leave on until their batteries run out. But I haven't captured anything. I've heard a few shuffles and bangs, which I've come in thinking there's a cat in here, because sometimes I always keep the place locked. The door's always locked. But sometimes the cat will sneak in here when I'm in here, and
We lost him.
yeah, we've lost Mark. must be those pesky dolls.
Yeah, they don't want to be talked about anymore.
Hopefully he'll reconnect. I'm just having a quick look. There's a lot of questions you were probably
not see me.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back.
You're back.
I can see me and I can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got lots of little items here that have been just passed on to me through the years. I mean, there's this one here. This one here talks. It's got a little cord at the back that you pull, and it's supposed to talk. But as you can see, broken, doesn't work. But she still talks apparently. So it got passed on to me because they got creeped out. So I've got lots of. This is the one I picked up when I was over in the UK. So it was given to me. This belonged to a little girl, and she lived in Edwinstowe, which is quite close to Sherwood Forest, Nottingham. And it was handcrafted for this girl over there that had cancer and all her hair fell out. So they made her a doll with no hair, so she could play, so she could, have a little bald friend. And they gave me a little bag with a whole lot of wigs. So I've got wigs with curls and all sorts of stuff that go on there. And basically this was her favourite doll, and she passed away, and they believe that the daughter is still in this doll. But they ended up passing it on to a hospice shop, sort of Salvation Army hospice shop. And the lady there told me the story about the girl, and she actually just gave it to me because nobody wanted it. She's been there for many years in the bottom of this cabinet, covered up with all these books and rubbish. And I just happened to see a bit of eye sticking out, and I said, "What's that?" And she told me the whole story. She didn't even know who I was or what I did. And she just told me the whole story and offered it to me. Yeah, it's quite nice. So yeah, I've got a few items that have nice backstories. Yeah, but nothing's actually done anything that I've noticed. I live in hope. A very full room of junk, according to the wife.
Mark, can I ask, did you accidentally knock the keyboard before you picked it up? Because I heard a note. We'll need to check back on the video, but a few minutes before you picked up the keyboard, I actually heard a note, and I was like, oh, what was that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it doesn't make any sense now.
Oh.
I definitely check that out.
Check back just before he picked up, a couple of minutes before, there was a note from a keyboard sounded out.
This is the sound it usually makes.
Something like that, yeah. We'll need to check back the video.
Yeah, it has a few beats and things on it. Yeah, okay, interesting.
Okay. I'm kind of like, there's
the coldest room in the house. It's very cold. It's you open the door and you come in, it's just icy cold. It's crazy.
Interesting.
But I like it. It's cozy.
Okay, aside from your local investigations, where has been your favourite location to investigate a bit further afield for both teams? So
You go first.
One of my favourites was the Sheraton Hotel in Rarotonga in the Cook Islands. It's just something a little bit different. It was abandoned, and it has a story behind it that spans over a few decades. How it was even once owned by the mafia, and they tried to get this lavish hotel built in the Cook Islands. And I don't know whether anyone's actually been to the Cook Islands, it's not a very big place. And to have a massive hotel there, the locals obviously didn't like it, and apparently the land was cursed. So from there on in, the last time I visited was about 10 years ago, and the place is completely abandoned. You'd think an abandoned hotel would be stripped of all its luxury items like the golden bath taps and things like that, but no, of course they're all there. And it's a really flash hotel, but it's just completely abandoned, and it is the most bizarre thing you've ever seen. I'd actually like to go back there and investigate properly. I just managed to go around the actual building and take a look, but it's really something else to be seen, eh? Even the massive pool is now overgrown and got frogs and tadpoles living in it, and it's really bizarre.
Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, for me, the coolest places I've been to, I haven't had any activity in, I haven't experienced anything out of the ordinary, but they're just great to sort of finally spend time in, like the Ancient Ram Inn. I got to spend a night there, and I'd been reading about it for so many years, and I've always wanted to go there, and just to spend a night there was just alone was just fantastic. Nothing happened. I mean, we got a few shuffling sounds on a live feed at the time, with some shuffling downstairs, but that was an interesting place, just a fascinating place with a fascinating history. I love to go in there. So next time I'm over, I'm going to spend another night there. Places like Chillingham Castle, there's another one that I've heard a lot of amazing stories about, but I've also heard a lot of stories of fakery going on by the tour guides. So I wanted to go and experience it for myself. And that was one that sort of changed my whole views about the place. I sort of went there, spent a night there. We stayed in the guard's house, and incredible place, amazing. I'm definitely keen to go back there again and look deeper into that place. It's there's something going on there, because there was no fakery going on. There was no tours on while I was there, and there's definitely something. 30 East Drive, the old Black Monk house, poltergeist house. I spent a night there, and again, very quiet, but just the stories, just being in a place that has the amount of stories, it's just, I love it. I love going to where the stories are. Whether things happen or not, that's a different story, but yeah, I think those three places would be the most coolest I've been to.
Yeah.
What about you, Liam?
Chillingham Castle, actually. I was there a couple of years ago on holiday, and nothing paranormal happened in it, but I love it because it's very oldie.
Yeah.
Actually, most castles you now visit have all had their, 17th, 18th, 19th century makeover. Chillingham hasn't. Chillingham is like you really are going back in time, and it's just got that wonderful feel to it. The dungeon area with all the torture equipment was just like, whoa. It was just like really, yeah, it was absolutely fascinating. I visited the Southbridge Vaults last year as well, just on a tour in Edinburgh, and I loved that. That was really, really good. Would love to go back there and do a proper investigation of the underground vaults in Edinburgh. Definitely. Yeah. Lynn, yourself?
Well, the furthest I've investigated, I suppose, has been St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida. There there was a opportunity to do like a history walk talk in the evening, and then you got time to go off on your own and do investigations. I've spent time in the lighthouse in the dark. It's very disorientating sitting in the dark and something there's a spiral going up and a spiral going down. It's really quite odd. Picked up some EMF in the houses that were attached to the lighthouse, which have got various ghost stories. But yeah, so that's my furthest investigation. I've done lots of castles around the place. If there's a castle, I've probably been in it.
I've already told Sam that when we win the lottery, me and him, we're coming over. And we're going to every single hotspot location. We're going to be traveling the whole UK. We're doing it. You and me, Sam.
Yep. We'll find those ghosts in those haunted castles.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting in the ancient ram by myself thinking, man, Sam needs to be here. Sam needs to be right here. Experiencing this. He needs to be here right now. Yeah. Damn, it's one thing being there by yourself, but just, you want to be able to share it with somebody as well, I mean, I love doing solo investigations and being by myself. I like the isolation and just doing things by myself. But sometimes things are just so cool that you just want to share the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it is time's ticking on, guys, and I know it's late for yourselves over there. That's right. But if you're fine, we'll carry on. I'm quite happy to carry on. You okay, Sam?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I did see, and I just saw a kind of headline this morning. I didn't read it or anything, but apparently there is an 35% increase in reported hauntings during the COVID-19 outbreak. Right. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I mean, people are home, aren't they? And they're going to experience more things. If activity happens during the day while they're at work, they're not going to know necessarily. I guess funny story. The only thing I experienced while being home was a cap off a bottle of olive oil flew across the kitchen. But nothing ever like that ever happens here at all. I'm just going to put it down to some freak bit of gas or a gust of wind or something like that. But I mean, people are going to notice more, and if they're doing absolutely nothing, if they're being inactive at home, they're probably just experiencing the sounds of their own home, and they're not used to it.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you go to a place just once, the chances of you experiencing something amazing and paranormal are very, very slim. But if you're living in that place from day to day, 24/7, you're going to eventually, experience what the house is really about. And I agree with Sam. You're hearing pretty much the sounds that the house makes, the creaks and the groans that you wouldn't normally hear because you'd be at work. You'd be at work during the day, so you wouldn't hear those noises. You wouldn't hear the pipes cooling down as the taps have been turned off during the day. When you go to work, your taps are all your water's cooling down in the pipes. You turn the hot water back on again, it all heats up again, and goes creak and groan and click.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of misinterpretations going on at the moment. Everyone's on lockdown. They're hearing all these sounds that they haven't heard before. As Sam said, we're not home during the day. We're at work. Now you're at home. You're hearing all these noises as the day goes on. The sun's coming up. The house starts creaking. If you're not sure if you're not used to those sounds, well, yeah, you're going to be jumping into ghosts.
Yeah, definitely. No, spot on. I've got another couple of questions here, so I'll fire through these. Lauren is asking, what are your thoughts on residual conversation voices? A house I lived in, which was fairly new, you could hear voices in conversation, the rising and falling, but could never make out the topic of discussion. Conversation sounded like it was coming from through the wall, kind of like hearing a neighbour's television, but there was no other houses or buildings at the other side of the wall. This didn't happen every night, but was witnessed by several others.
Yeah, we've experienced the same things. I've heard the same things. We've all heard voices when there shouldn't be any. We've heard children, like at the old school, we had the sound of chattering of almost like a playground with lots of kids all laughing and squealing and making noises. This is at 2 and 3 in the morning. You could faintly hear it through the headphones, and that was brought to our attention by a couple of listeners that were following our live feed. We had a live feed, a Facebook live feed going at the time, and somebody said, "I can hear children," but we couldn't hear it with our ears. But they said we had the live feed positioned up in the bathroom. There was like an old toilet bathroom upstairs, and we had the live feed sort of just sitting on a tripod there, and that's when they were experiencing the sounds. So I went up there to have a listen. I couldn't hear anything with my ears, but I put the headphones on and had my audio recorder going, which amplifies everything. And yes, I could just faintly hear it. I tried recording it, but it was too faint to be recorded. But because the headphones were amplifying the sound, I could hear it with my ears. And I could definitely hear the faint sound of screaming, chattering little kids, like in a playground. So residual. I mean, I believe residual audio recordings can happen. I don't really know how, but I think it's possible. I mean, we've heard sounds that we couldn't explain. Not misinterpreted sounds either. There are sounds that you would misinterpret, and you would hear a squeak and think it's a voice, or a creak and think that's something else. But a lot of the sounds we've heard are definitely those sounds. Like the children one was definitely the sounds of squealing children in a playground. That's what it was. It couldn't have been anything else. We've heard pianos playing. We've heard I mean the piano. Sam, we heard a piano playing. It was definitely the sound of a piano, but we couldn't tell whether it was some sort of recording or some sort of electronic sort of gadget somehow playing a sound of a piano.
We definitely didn't know where it was coming from, put it that way.
No. It was definitely a piano, but where from, we don't know. Yeah. Things like that. So residual, for me personally, I believe they're a thing, but I don't know how they work.
Yeah, we had a doorbell in the last investigation we did in Nairn. Yeah, and there's no doorbell, and it was caught on audio. It was heard by everybody, and actually the property was being renovated at the time, and the builders were telling us they were hearing it all the time. It was doing their head in, but nobody could find this doorbell.
Was it a doorbell or was it like a clock chime?
Oh, it's a chime, but it sounded like I'm saying doorbell, but it was that kind of 70s kind of electronic chime. It could have been a clock as well, but again, as I said, nobody was able to actually find out where it was. We've had the singing children in one of the graveyards in Inverness, caught on audio as well.
Really?
Very faintly, yeah. And if you go back in history and look in history, the kids used to use the graveyards in Inverness as playground. Basically, they would go in there and play. So it sounded like they were singing nursery rhymes. So it kind of all tied in and made made sense from that side of it. On the subject of children, then Mary's asking, few investigations we were called in to help with was due to young children seeing spirits. Do you guys have the same opinion as me that kids can be more receptive than adults to spirit?
I don't think they would be more susceptible any more or less. I think children are just more honest. They're not as socially conditioned as adults as well. So I think if they're seeing something, then I don't know, maybe they're less likely to make something up. I'm not too sure.
I agree with that.
Yeah. They're more likely to be honest about what they're seeing, put it that way. I mean, the children still have imaginations, but, where they're getting these ideas from, you have to really listen to the story that they're telling as well. I mean, sometimes it could be quite outlandish, it could be, a really bogus story that they're telling, but then some things might actually fit in with the area that they're in or the house that they're in. Whereas an adult might embellish a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting because from our point of view, the cases that we've done with children, we certainly feel that preschool children seem to be very open to spirit. And the volume of cases we've done, I'm very much now of the opinion that when children have imaginary friends, they're not imaginary friends, if you know what I mean. It seems to be something that most children grow out of once they go to school. So that what you're saying, Sam, again, kind of adds up there as well. That once they start to get a bit of pressure and whatnot, that things change for them. Children with autism as well, we've actually found, and I know there's been some research done in that area as well, but we've done quite a few cases with children with autism that seem to be more open as well to possible seeing spirit and whatnot. And it's a challenge and it's difficult, but I certainly, as I said earlier, I think in private cases I always kind of find that the ones involving children seem to be more honest and use the word genuine than a lot of the adult cases. Yeah, it is kind of fascinating. It's an area I think again there's a lot of research needs to be done. We did a fascinating case early on. It must have been the first couple of years we were operating. In a private case involving, it was a horrific case actually, the background, but it was involving a child who I think was around 11, who sadly been abused when they were much younger, and they suffered from horrific nightmares, visions, constantly the same man appearing in their dreams. He was like a Victorian undertaker who was basically telling them, you can't tell anyone, I'm going to kill your family, I'm going to, so we were called in, and this was one where we didn't get the full story at the start, which didn't help us. But what I found most fascinating was we obviously asked them, we don't want the child to be there. So we said, look, can you get your child stay with some relatives and we'll come in and see what we can find. So from a paranormal point of view, we really didn't find anything. No major pits on equipment, no audio, nothing. However, Mike, our medium, who knew nothing of the case, he picked up on it and he described him to a T. So I find this absolutely fascinating in the whole mediumship thing, that if this character is not real, that's, the child has psychologists, and the psychologist had actually said it was a good idea to get us to see if it helped. But the fact that, what this child is seeing is his horrors. This is what, has affected him, and this is all his horrors in this character. Yet our medium picked up on that character and described him to a T. And I find that fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And we've never really managed to go any further with that. But as I said, in that case, there was nothing we could do apart from say to them, basically, you've not got a paranormal issue here. But it was absolutely fascinating from the point of view that Mike picked up on the same character. Yeah. And the child wasn't in the house, so that again, at the time, that was also another room where there was a lot of EMF in the room, because the kid had consoles, TVs, everything all around the room, which again I don't think helped matters, to be honest. But yeah, that was a fascinating one.
Yeah, interesting.
See if there's anything else. An ex-boyfriend went through my dining room to use the bathroom next to my room and heard a voice whisper, "Get out." Must have knew he was going to be your ex. No, I don't think there's any other real questions in there at the moment. Apologies.
One popped up about Culloden housing development. There's more news today about it, and near the battlefield. As paranormal investigators, do you feel such things are provoking paranormal activity?
Provoking.
Like building near the battlefield would provoke paranormal
Oh,
activity.
right. Okay.
I would say, I mean, I've been asked this question before, and I've used examples like Gettysburg, you know, and the rail depot in Gettysburg. So, you know, more of but one of the main concerns at Culloden is that the scope of the battlefield is much greater than what's in the preserved area. And there's already houses being built on an area where we know that action took place. There was no archaeological work done in advance. There could be burial pits, because there's burial pits all over the battlefield. You know, and there's been stories for the last 100-odd years of farmers, and even when they've been putting in roads around that area, digging up bones. So there's this I think what we're getting at here is this theory that basically if you build a property on somewhere that's either has burials or has had traumatic events take place, and are you likely to have paranormal activity? Gettysburg Depot suggests yes, but I don't know. It goes back down to this one as well, that we see when people do alterations to a building, we see an increase in activity. So that's quite common. You know, we get a lot of reports of that, where a building that's never reported active suddenly becomes active. And then when the building stops, it seems to go quiet again.
True.
Yeah. It's interesting. We'll need to wait, Lynn, and see if we get some phone calls. You know, I know it's a very, very, very sore subject, the building and on the battlefield, and something that we are dead against. But sadly, it seems that, well, it's already taken place with one development, and I think that's kind of opened the floodgates. So they are now trying to push back a bit on preventing further. But yeah, so that one has been resubmitted. Right. Well, I think, guys, we've run over a bit, but it's been absolutely awesome. I can't thank you enough for joining and giving up your evening. And we'll be happy to return the favour for you guys at some point. Just let us know when.
Great.
Stay safe, and we will link your page on ours after this event as well, and we'll dig out that video.
Cool. Yes.
Okay. So thanks.
Thanks for having us.
No problem.
Thanks, Lynn.
Speaking to you.
Thanks,
See you all soon.
Liam.
Okay. Cheers.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
later.
Bye. See ya.